We've unboxed, installed, and tested these Savage Raven accessories, and now it's time to put them through the full review ringer. The best thing about Savage Raven by Skull & Co., henceforth just Savage Raven, is the pricing. It's kind of insane how affordable their products are, at least here in the Philippines. Alongside the new NeoGrip and EDC Case, I also picked up the StandGrip bundle with a travel cover and a 2-pack of tempered glass screen protectors. I ordered it all via Shopee and got about 10 USD off with a voucher, making the total price just under 35 USD. If you were to order from the Savage Raven website, the same products would cost you almost 88 USD. Throughout the rest of the video, I'm only going to be mentioning the price listed on their website. If you're in the Philippines, just keep in mind that you can get all of these accessories for much cheaper over here. The NeoGrip is a polycarbonate grip with 3 included interchangeable grip options, ranging from the smallest snap grips to my preferred trigger grips to the beefiest plus grips. It's compatible with their EDC case, but only when using the snap grips. The NeoGrip seems to have been designed for ergonomics and not really for protection, as it does leave quite a lot of the console exposed. There are 3 color options available: an all black, the one I have that's black on the main part with neon red and blue grips, and a limited edition one that's half neon red and half neon blue. On the Savage Raven website, the NeoGrip is listed at $30 US at what seems to be a fake discount. It's the same story for pretty much all of their listings, so I'm just going to be ignoring the fake real prices. You can also buy the NeoGrip bundled with a max carry case for $50. Upon first glance, the NeoGrip seems largely the same on the Switch 1 and 2, but once you look closer, you do find some interesting differences. For the sake of brevity, I'll be referring to the Switch 1 version as the NeoGrip 1 and the Switch 2 version as the NeoGrip 2. Cool? Cool. The first difference is the lock on the top piece that you can engage to prevent the piece from coming off. I personally have never had use for this top piece. I even used the NeoGrip 1 for some time without bothering to put it on, and I encountered no issues. The next difference is the padding inside the grip. On the NeoGrip 1, the ones on the back are foam, while the ones on the side are silicone. NeoGrip 2 opts for all foam. The side ones were an issue for me on the NeoGrip 1, as they ended up coming off and I had to super glue them back on. The whole thing was pretty messy with glue getting on the case and the Joy-Cons. On the Switch 2, so far so good. I've been taking the case on and off a lot throughout my testing, and none of the padding has yet to come off. Make sure you're subscribed and maybe follow me on Instagram at Kaloy's Tech Journal for any long-term updates in this regard. The positioning of the grips is also different, sitting higher up on the Switch 2 than the Switch 1. This means that the trigger and plus grips don't protrude down below the console. This also allows them to act as a stand to prop the console up, although that's kind of redundant considering the console's built-in stand is already accessible. One of the first things I wanted to test was whether or not the swappable grips were cross-compatible between the 2 generations of NeoGrip. When I looked at them side by side for the first time, I thought they would be. I really tried to jam the old grips onto the NeoGrip 2, but they would not snap on. I don't recommend trying this yourself. In hindsight, I don't know why I thought this would work at all, as you can see that the corner radius on the Joy-Cons is different between Switch 1 and 2. I also noticed later on that one of the snap grips, that's the smallest of the 3 interchangeable grip options, was loose, making a rattling noise when shaken. Hear that? Perhaps this was due to me attempting to force the old grips on the case, but I have also seen a few others reporting the same issue. If you have a NeoGrip 2, please let us know if you are or aren't experiencing this. I stuck a couple of strips of masking tape onto the snap grip and this did resolve the issue. The materials feel largely the same to me from NeoGrip 1 to 2. There's a bit more of a rough texture to the finish of the 2, much like the difference between the finish of the Switch 1 and 2. Initially, I didn't consider it a huge issue that the Joy-Cons can't be detached without first removing the NeoGrip. After all, the vast majority of my playtime is in handheld mode, just around the house, and the only game I've ever played that had me detaching the Joy-Cons was Super Mario Odyssey. However, just throughout all of my testing for this video and the unboxing one, I've already found myself frequently detaching the Joy-Cons, and it has been quite a pain having to remove the case every single time. I am very pleased to report that the NeoGrip is 100% dockable even with the tempered glass screen protector. It seems like the screen on the Switch 2 is a little bit recessed into the bezel, which makes it so there's barely any protrusion by the screen protector, unlike on the Switch 1 where the bump is very prominent. I'm hoping this will be true for screen protectors in cases from other brands, but I can really only say that for sure with this particular case and tempered glass screen protector. Unsurprisingly, I love the NeoGrip 2. It's pretty much the same as the NeoGrip 1 after all, and I happily used that for the entire 4 or so years that I was using my Switch 1. Savage Raven sells 2 different carrying cases for the Nintendo Switch 2. The first is the $30 max carry case that's only available in black, and the other one is the slimmer $20 EDC case, available in 3 colors: black, denim, and camo. I used to have a max carry case for my Switch 1, but I found it too big for my usage. I didn't really have anything to put into any of that extra storage space, and so I replaced it with their Switch 1 EDC case. For the Switch 2, I chose the denim colorway of the EDC case, and it looks really good. This case will fit the NeoGrip using the snap grips, and it can also accommodate the StandGrip. Comparing it to the old EDC case, it's of course bigger, but also has this plush interior as opposed to the felt-like interior of the old EDC case. On the inner flap, you get 2 fewer game card slots, but you do get this new pocket for things like cables or earphones. This is pretty great for me as I did carry earphones in my old EDC case, and I used to just cram them in there all loose and insecure. Really, the only thing I don't like about the EDC case is this gaudy red tab that says for Switch 2. I might get tempted to rip it off sometime down the line. In practice, the bigger size isn't too noticeable. It does still fit into all of my everyday bags. The weight does get a bit much though, but of course that's the console's fault, not the case's. The StandGrip is a one-piece soft case available for $17 in 3 colors: smoky black, jet black, and galactic purple. You can also pick it up in a couple of bundles, one with a travel cover for $25 total, and the other with the max carry case for $33 total. The travel cover can also be bought separately for $13 in 3 colors. 2 of these, the neon red and blue, are not available bundled with the StandGrip. The StandGrip's standout feature seems to be its ability to stand up on its own to play in tabletop mode without the need for a kickstand. This is a little bit baffling to me as the case does not allow for detaching the Joy-Cons, which is what you would have to do to play in tabletop mode. I guess you could use an external controller or extra Joy-Cons, but in my mind you shouldn't have to. It just makes the whole thing a lot less portable. I never really play in tabletop mode, but if you do, then you should know that the StandGrip seems to have trouble standing up on soft surfaces like a desk mat. It gets really wobbly and precarious, often just refusing to stand up. On hard surfaces, it seems to be just fine. While the StandGrip is described as a soft case, it's not thin and flimsy. It feels nice and substantial. The grips aren't huge like my preferred trigger grips on the NeoGrip 2, so I did feel some fatigue just holding the console up while playing since it's quite heavy. I initially thought that maybe the StandGrip is just heavier than the NeoGrip, but I weighed them and they're pretty similar in weight. I guess the grips really just make that much of a difference in comfort. I also found my hands getting a tad bit sweaty while using the StandGrip for long periods of time. Perhaps that's due to the materials, as this never really happens to me with the NeoGrip. I picked up the StandGrip almost entirely because of the travel cover. I'm very intrigued by this new way of carrying the Switch around. While I did love using the EDC case with my Switch 1, I did find myself wishing the entire process of getting the console out to play was just a tiny bit faster. With a travel cover, at least in theory, it's about as fast as it gets. You pull it out of your bag, snap the cover off, and you're off to the races. As opposed to pulling the EDC case out of the bag, unzipping it, opening it up, undoing the Velcro strap, lifting the console up and out, and only then getting to play. I know this makes me sound kind of crazy, like it's not a huge difference, but nitpicking is what I do. And yeah, I am probably a little bit crazy, and if you're watching this, you probably are too. Sorry. Initially, the travel cover isn't actually any faster because the tabs are so tight that you end up having to go back and pull multiple times to get the cover completely off. But after doing it several times, I was able to undo each tab with just one pull each, and then later I ended up undoing both with just one single pull. Perhaps I just got used to doing it, or perhaps the front cover loosened up or softened or something. And of course, I timed it all. My fastest time to play with the EDC case was about 9 seconds. With the travel cover, I got down to 5 or 6, so it's a tiny difference, but a difference nonetheless. Stowing the console after playing was also faster at 11 seconds versus just 4. Ultimately, the added speed isn't enough to definitively pick the travel cover over the EDC case. One last thing to note is that you end up with marks on the StandGrip from removing the travel cover, which is not a huge deal as they're only really visible against the right light. The downside to the travel cover paradigm is protection or a lack thereof. Pretty much all of the travel cover case combos I've seen have some parts of the console exposed. Unfortunately, the StandGrip seems to have way more of this exposure than say the D brand kill switch. You have this big ol' square hole right on the back exposing the Switch 2 logo, cutouts for the USB ports, the fans, the game card slot, and even a bit of a gap around the trigger buttons. Initially, I thought that this was all probably not a huge deal since I don't really carry anything in my bag that could potentially damage the Switch 2 through these holes. But then I actually put the console in one of my go-to everyday bags, a corduroy tote with no padding, and it really felt precarious in there. Like I started getting very conscious about how I set the bag down on the ground and about it getting bumped while moving around. These are concerns I never had with the Switch inside of a carrying case like the EDC case. Perhaps I'm being a little bit paranoid. The StandGrip is compatible with the EDC case, so if you're like me, then you may want to go that route over the travel cover route. Personally, I'm not too crazy about the StandGrip. Really, the only advantage it has over the NeoGrip, at least for me, is the greater coverage for better protection of the console. I've never really needed this extra protection though, as I mostly just play at home. The travel cover is intriguing, but I didn't find this particular implementation to be superior to a traditional carrying case in any meaningful way. If you're more of an on-the-go player who needs that extra protection, then perhaps the StandGrip is the case for you. But if you're like me and mostly play in handheld mode at home, then the superior comfort of the NeoGrip is probably the way to go. Savage Raven has a few tempered glass screen protector options, henceforth just TGs. I picked up the 2-pack with a clear finish and easy install frame, which is listed at $13. They also have this same 2-pack in a matte finish for the same price. For a bit more money, $20, you can also get a clear 2-pack with an easy install kit. What's the difference? I'm not quite sure honestly. Presumably the kit is more foolproof than just the frame. I just opted to save money with the frame. I did feel a tiny bit of regret as I wasn't too confident in my ability to install this thing with no issues. After all, when I installed a TG onto my Switch 1, I ended up with a speck of dust getting stuck underneath, but it was on the black bezel part, so I just left it there. Installation on the Switch 2 was a breeze actually, so I don't know what I got so worked up about. The installation frame did its job very well and I ended up with no air bubbles or dust underneath the TG. The only problem I encountered was with the dust sticker, but that's on me. I spent so much time trying to peel the sticker from the very edge, when it turns out it's only the blue part that's a sticker. Oops. Once on, you don't really notice it anymore, which is a good thing. Like I said in the NeoGrip chapter, the screen on the Switch 2 seems to be a bit recessed, which makes it so the TG only very barely protrudes out from the screen. It's hard to make a general conclusion on these Savage Raven accessories as the price seems to differ wildly between regions. For the amount of money that I spent, I'd say I got way more than my money's worth. But for the website prices, I don't know if I would recommend any of these. Again, it's hard to say that for sure as spending power differs around the world, so just direct conversions to my own currency can't really tell me what kind of value someone in a different country would be getting. If price weren't a factor, then these are all easy recommendations. The quality is good. Nothing here feels cheap, and the only real issue was the wobbling snap grip that's quite easily fixed. Personally, I'll be using the NeoGrip with the EDC case, just like I did on my Switch 1. I'll keep the StandGrip and travel cover for future comparisons to other similar cases. I am a little bit disappointed that everything I've been able to get my hands on so far has been so conventional. I really want to try something with a hinge or with straight up detachable Joy-Con pieces. I would still love to check out the D brand kill switch provided they fix all their issues. The one that really checks all of the boxes though, at least on paper for me, is the Genki Attack Vector. Unfortunately, the price and shipping cost to here in the Philippines are just too much for me to stomach. It also seems to have some problems problems with docking. The other major player is satisfied with their StandGrip 2. I feel like this is the one that has the highest potential to usurp the NeoGrip for me. Unfortunately, they don't seem to ship to the Philippines. Here's hoping that Tech Smart PH starts selling the new StandGrips in the future. Or hey, Satisfy, maybe you'd like to send me a StandGrip 2 bundle. This goes for all of you other brands too. D-Brand, Genki, Spigen, JSaw, Plenbo, Momba, Subcase. Send me some cases or anything else Switch 2 related. My email is in the description. And that's my look at a few of the offerings from Savage Raven by Skull & Co. for the Switch 2. What do you think about them? Would you pick the NeoGrip over the StandGrip like I did? Or are you doing the opposite? Anything else you picked up from Savage Raven? Or from any other accessory maker? How do you like them? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.